What is up, guys? Empire. Kamisato Ayato has just released on the Genshin Impact 2.6 server, so I want to make this video going over my first impressions on him, as well as the best team comp and best build that I could find for him while I was streaming on twitch.tv/KeylandPie. Alright, to begin, let's do a showcase of Kamisato Ayato's skills. His elemental skill will have him dash and deal elemental damage, and the burst skill will create a large field that does elemental damage over and over to enemies. Oh wait, wrong character. His burst skill will do the exact same thing and cause a large field dealing elemental damage over and over again, and his elemental skill will cause him to dash and leave down an object that explodes and deal damage to enemies, and then his auto attacks will change into a ethereal slash. Another thing you may want to take note of is in his elemental skill state, he will be able to generate stacks when he hits enemies that allows him to deal more damage based on his max HP. However, this scaling is quite low, even if you do have his Constellation 2, to the point where you shouldn't be building him based off of HP percent, since his skills do scale off of attack percent as well too. I would consider this something similar to Yae Miko's EM scaling, where it's a nice perk and a nice damage bonus, but it's not something you should directly build into. Ayato will also be unable to use charge or plunge attacks in his elemental skill state, and his damage in his elemental skill state does not depend on his auto attack or normal attack level. His burst skill will also allow characters inside his hydro field to gain a normal attack damage bonus, kind of similar to how Ganyu increases cryo damage bonus of characters within her field. Now that we covered the basics, let's go over one of the best, if not the best team comp for C0 Kamisato Ayato. From my few hours of testing, this was actually what performed the best in damage and consistency of Bennett, Kazuha, Xiangling, and Ayato. You can always replace Kazuha with Sucrose if you guys do not have him currently. However, I will say that it will perform a little bit worse. Alright, really quickly, we're just going to showcase this team on floor 12, chamber 1, first half, using my 36-star Abyss Ayato video. And you guys might have caught that the card that I ended up picking up was a 20% increased burst damage card. And in the start of this, I'm just using Bennett's, Kazuha, Xiangling's elemental burst skill, and then Ayato's burst skill into elemental skill to increase his normal attack damage. You guys will see here that the damage numbers aren't exactly quite large, with Xiangling doing something like 10k non-crit, 20k crit or vape. And then you'll see that Ayato's kind of hitting for somewhere around 5 to 10k, maybe 20k on a vape. But collectively, there's a lot of damage numbers going on that makes this team strong. This team is obviously very identical to the Tartaglia variant, but the problem with the Tartaglia variant is Tartaglia does have a cooldown on his element skill, where you can mitigate that by hopping off him early and doing some energy building on Xiangling, but that is just Xiangling doing raw pyro damage in that situation. But as you guys see here, this run is almost done, and it's taking about a minute and 6 seconds, a minute and 5 seconds to finish that up. With C0 Ayato, with Xiangling on a Favonius Lance, and Kazuha on Iron Sting. So for this team, I did use C0 Kazuha and C0 Ayato, and if you guys do have C2 Kazuha, it probably will just do so much better, because C2 Kazuha will provide an EM bonus to the team, and this team is going to be based on Xiangling vaporizing with her Pyronado ultimate on the hydro application from Ayato. I do recommend that you guys do use C4 Xiangling. However, it probably won't be absolutely necessary, because Ayato only has a 6-second duration to apply hydro, and Xiangling would have a 14-second duration with C4 Constellation. And if she doesn't have C4, she'll have a 10-second duration. I don't expect it to do super well in terms of damage, but if you guys do use Xiangling without C4, let me know how it goes for you. Now let's move on to the build for this team composition. You guys can see here I have 1900 attack and 86.6% crit rate, 165% crit damage, and 104.5 energy recharge, 42 EM, and 61.6 hydro damage bonus. If you guys look at my weapon, I am using the Black Sword. This is considered his best 4-star weapon. You guys can obviously use 5-star weapons such as Aquila Favonia, Jade Cutter, and then Haran as his signature weapon. Even Mistblade to an extent, but remember, he can't do charge attacks in it. If you guys are looking for other 4-star alternatives, because you guys do not have Black Sword, because you guys are free to play, if you guys somehow have Festering Desire, this can work pretty well, because it does have energy charge for his 80 cost burst, and he does have elemental skill damage bonus and elemental skill crit rate to make him hit a little bit harder as well too. You can also alternatively use Lion's Roar, but this is more so for if you are using an Electro Charge team, because the chances of the enemies having Pyro afflicted on them is going to be pretty low, because Ayato does apply Hydro at a pretty frequent fast rate. But when it comes down to Electro Charge, enemies will probably have Electro, so you guys will have that extra damage bonus right there. Another weapon you could potentially use is the Inazuma Craftable Kageuchi, because it is an attack-based weapon that will also have a passive that helps you get your burst skill again, but it's absolutely not necessary because your burst skill is not one of the key points of this build, or really Ayato in itself, unless you're running something like a freeze comp or electric charge comp. Also, if you guys happen to have Skyward Blade, you guys can probably use this one as well too, because it is an energy recharge type weapon with some pretty good base attack, and the passive is where it's going to be pretty interesting for Ayato, where it increases your crit rate by 4%, and after you guys use a burst skill, you'll have increased move speed, and your attack speed will be increased by 10% as well, and your normal charge attack damage will be increased by 20% of attack, which can be pretty sizable if you have double pyro bonus as well as Bennett's attack buff. And in regards to the flute, you guys could technically use this weapon because the passive would trigger rapidly, but this is more of a meme weapon because it's an attack-based weapon with no other real increased damage multiplier or attack speed multiplier within the passive, and it's just kind of a fart in damage. Now for artifacts, Ayato's best artifact set for this team build is going to be the new artifact set of Echo Zone Offering. If you guys don't know what this set does, the 2-piece set is an 18% increased attack, as well as the 4-piece set will cause it so that when normal attacks hit opponents, there's a 36% chance to trigger Valley Right, which will increase normal attack damage by 70% of attack for the next hit, because it'll pretty much dispel immediately afterwards. If you do not trigger Valley Right on your normal attack, the chance will increase by 20% after each subsequent hit. Now, despite this being his best artifact set, as I stated earlier, Xiangling is going to be the main damage dealer in the team due to her doing vape, so you don't exactly need this artifact set. If you guys have a really well built out Heart of Depth set or a really well built out Shimanala set, you can run these as well too, as well as a couple of other things that we'll talk about. Just note that if you guys do run Shimanala set, it will make it so that every time you use your elemental skill, you will lose energy for your burst skill. Remember, your burst skill, despite it being a little bit on the weaker side, it still will do damage, and it will also increase your normal attack damage by 16% as well too at level 6, and higher if you invest more into it. If you compare that to Heart of Depth, you'll see here Heart of Depth will increase by 30%, and if you add on the 16% from the burst, that's a 46% increase, as well as the 15% Hydro damage bonus, as opposed to Shimanala, which will do an 18% and a 18% attack and 50% increased damage bonus. Alternatively, just like any other character, if you guys are on extreme budget, you guys can always use a 2-piece mixture of Heart of Depth, Shimanala, or Gladiators, and just combine any of those together. Just remember, it will be weaker, but also at the same time, once again, Xiangling is the one that you need to focus on for damage, and obviously use a 4-piece Emblem Seraphate on her. If you guys want to, you guys can technically run a 4 Emblem Seraphate on Ayato as well too, but from my testing, it was pretty mediocre in this team comp because his burst skill is not very good. If you guys want to use him as a burst support for other teams such as a Freeze or Electric Charge, it can be okay as well for Emblem Seraphate. Now for Constellations, for this team build, I don't think Ayato requires any Constellations at all, but Constellations will increase his damage just like any other characters. C1, his elemental skill damage will be increased by 40% against opponents with 50% or less HP. Not absolutely necessary because it's kind of an executioner style buildy, and this only affects his elemental skill damage, but if you guys want it, you guys can definitely pick it up for a boost. His Constellation 2 will cause it so that his maximum HP scaling stacks for his elemental skill will be increased to 5. And when he reaches 3 stacks, his max HP will be increased by 50%. This is definitely nice, but absolutely not necessary. His elemental skill will be increased by 3 levels with Constellation 3. Could be a good damage boost. And his Constellation 4 is kind of one of the weirder ones, where it'll increase attack speed of nearby party members by 15% for 15 seconds after he uses his burst skill. But most of the team comps that Ayato will probably be put on will probably not have his teammates do normal attacks, because he'll probably be the one more focused around those. This could be useful for co-op if you guys want to juice up your teammates. His Constellation 5 will increase his elemental burst skill level by 3, and his C6 will cause it so that his next attack after his elemental skill will create 2 extra strikes, and each strike will deal 450% of Ayato's attack as damage. These attacks will not be affected by the HP scaling stacks of Nami-sen either. Now for talents, as I stated earlier, you don't really need to upgrade his auto attack. His elemental skill would be the one that you're going to want to juice up if you want to make it a high level. And his burst skill, like I said earlier, is kind of a weaker scaling ability and weaker damage ability, so you don't have to focus as much on that one either. Because this video is getting a little bit long, I'm just going to talk about the alternative team comps as well as their pros and cons. If you guys want me to show a certain team off in another video, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Let me first start off with one of the teams that I tried originally. For fun, it was going to be a Bennett, Xingqiu, Kazuha, Ayato team to kind of be a sort of mono hydro team with a Bennett attack booster. This didn't work out very well because Ayato just didn't really hit very hard. Xingqiu seemed to hit much harder than him. And if you guys do have Ayato's best in slot 5-star of the Haran, as well as an Echoes of an Offering set that's pretty well built, then Ayato could probably hit pretty well to make this pretty decent. However, I think it would lack in the AoE department compared to a Xiangling variant, unless somehow you could get enemies to stack up together and hold them in place so that Ayato could slash at them with his elemental skill. But without freeze, it's kind of hard to hit multiple enemies at the exact same time, all stacked up on each other. The next team is going to be the sibling team or the freeze team. This team was not very good either, despite it having Diona as the shielder, cryo battery healer, as well as Kazo for the swirl, the increased damage, the resist down, Ayato for the hydro application, and Ayaka for the damage. The problem with this team was that Ayato is the only hydro user on the team, so he struggled to get his burst consistently without high energy recharge. And even if he did have high energy charge, his elemental skill would not really be used too much because Ayaka just hit harder with her charge attacks compared to Ayato in his transformative state without any sort of support boosting his damage up. Even in this freeze variant where you replace Ayaka with Ganyu, it just isn't very sensible, because why would you want to spend 6 seconds in Ayato's elemental skill stance when it hits so little compared to Ganyu's arrows? When it comes to freeze teams, Kokomi and Mona are just going to be the better usage of hydro applicators compared to Ayato because they bring much more to the table and are quicker to use comparative to him. Even to an extent, you can use Xingqiu for single target and heavy damage and longer hydro application too. Now, when it comes to Electrocharge teams, one of my favorite Electrocharge teams is going to be the Raiden Shogun, Jean, Xingqiu, and Fischl team. You can always replace Fischl with C2, Kijo, Sarah, as well as Jean with Sayu if you guys don't have these characters. If you guys wanted to replace Xingqiu with Ayato, it is possible, but I will say Ayato's burst skill is a lot weaker than Xingqiu's burst skill when it comes to single target. And the AoE is going to be covered by the Electrocharge, and Ayato's elemental skill is going to be stronger than Xingqiu's elemental skill overall if built well. However, in the grand scheme of damage, I think this is the weaker variant. Also, Ayato's burst increasing normal attack damage doesn't even help Raiden because Raiden's damage is considered burst damage in her burst state. An Electrocharge team that did feel pretty okay was the team of Fischl, Jean, Beidou, and Ayato. However, this team has existed in the past already with Tartaglia. The only issue is Tartaglia did have cooldown issues, just like how Tartaglia existed in the international team of Bennett, Xiangling, Tartaglia as well too in the past. When Ayato is put into this team, there is a sense of consistency because he doesn't have cooldown issues. However, there was also a sense of inconsistency because I really needed enemies to be close together for Beidou's ultimate to bounce off enemies to get maximum damage output. Another problem I had with the Electrocharge team was that the original 4-star version of Fischl, Sucrose, Xingqiu, and Beidou was just dealing more damage and more consistent than the Ayato versions. Note that this does not have Jean as a healer, but this one does have double damage mitigation from Xingqiu and Beidou and minor healing from Xingqiu. If you guys want to try to replace Jean with Sucrose to get the EM bonus, you guys could try that. Just know it's going to be very risky with only Beidou as the damage mitigation there. The last team I want to talk about for this video is the Yunjin teams. The problem with these teams is that they are heavily reliant on boosting only Ayato's damage, and if Ayato doesn't end up performing, it's going to be a weaker side team compared to if you replace this with Xiangling. It's the same concept for if you do a Yoimiya plus Xiangling team as opposed to a Yoimiya plus Yunjin team. Too much focus is pushed onto one character, and if that one character doesn't do all of the damage, it's not going to be very good. And overall, even if they do all the damage, it's still weaker than Xiangling because Xiangling is just that broken. I do want to say all the team comps that I did mention were pretty okay to use. It's just that the Xiangling one did feel the absolute best and the one that I feel I can rely on when doing the Abyss in the future. As you guys can kind of tell, Ayato and Tartaglia do share a lot of similarities. It's just that Ayato is going to be the more consistent version without a cooldown issue compared to Tartaglia. But Tartaglia will be kind of the more bursty version if you guys are just looking for a quick load of damage to come out in one go. In conclusion, I think Ayato is a pretty fun character. If you guys do like his aesthetic or like his playstyle, I definitely think Ayato can be a very good pickup for you. If you guys do want to wait to see how Yelan or the new 2.7 characters will be playing out, that's definitely an option considering how both of them are going to be a Hydro character. But I hope this video was helpful for you building up your Ayato teams or deciding if you guys want to summon Ayato. Make sure you guys leave a like, comment down below what you guys think about Ayato. Subscribe for more Genshin Impact and other game content. Make sure you guys follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/KeylinePie to watch me play Genshin Impact and other games live. Join our Discord to talk about other Genshin related things and other games. Make sure you guys follow me on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram for more content. Thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.